Ask your questions. Those of you on Zoom, please use the raise hand function, and I will answer as they come up. And with that, Coach Freeman, your opening statement.
Yeah, it's obviously my first time being up here after a win, and so it's a little bit different feeling. And again, you watch the film, you're proud of the way the guys played. They played hard, which for me has never been a question. It's the execution. And listen, we didn't execute for 60 minutes straight, but there was the execution when you needed it most. And there's a lot of good learning from the film. And it's always better to use those teaching opportunities after wins than it is after a loss. And so we watched it, we evaluated. We had a good practice yesterday, and wanted to get some corrections from Saturday. Obviously corrected yesterday, and then we've kind of moved forward to North Carolina, which will be a huge challenge for this team. But really quickly, just recapping the last game, what we do after wins is we have players of the game. We don't do that after losses. And the offensive player of the game was Audric Estemi. And for defense, it was Isaiah Foskey. And for special teams, it was Houston Griffith. And, we also grade winning performances. And I won't go through all the names. We had 20 guys that were able to grade out as winners for the game. So it's really good to see not just the overall outcome being victorious, but guys that are graded out at winning performances. So we got to continue to focus on execution. We got to continue to practice better, continue to clean up the mistakes, but build off of the momentum after one game. We have to build off of this. And, again, as I said earlier, now as we prepare for North Carolina, and I have the utmost respect for Coach Brown, who I've gone against as a player 3 times, and then last year obviously was my first time going against him as a coach, but always respected the way his teams have played, and I know this North Carolina team will be no different. So with that, I'll open up for questions.
Second row on your right, Tom Noy.
Marcus, there was so much focus your first 3 weeks, your first game at Ohio State, your first home game, your first win. Can it maybe get back to a little bit of normalcy this week and just be about football?
Yeah. I think I've knocked out all the firsts, right? And first bowl game, but first loss in a bowl game, first loss on the road, first loss at home. So we've knocked out all those first in the negative aspect, got the first win. And so, as you just said, yeah, let's talk about an opponent. Let's talk about, preparing for a game and what it takes to have success.
How is this team better going back out on the road than maybe the first time against Ohio State?
I think we're developing identity, but, if you think offensively now, you were developing identity after 2 games and then you get a new quarterback. But I love the adjustments and really how we're able to execute obviously more proficiently in the second half of the game. And so they'll know the expectations going on the road. A lot of these guys that are playing for us have been to Chapel Hill and played at North Carolina. I've never been down there. So they'll know what to expect. And so I'm looking forward to seeing this group perform on Saturday.
Pete Burns, second row on your left.
Coach, in your experience, what are the biggest challenges in playing on the road that don't exist playing at home?
I think to eliminate the distractions, to, there's not the level of comfort like it is playing at home in Notre Dame Stadium, but I think sometimes that can really rally a troop together. It's almost us against everybody. And, I think competitors like that. Competitors like their backs against the wall going, we're going to face this challenge. And so, listen, you're going to be at a new hotel. You got to fly. All those different challenges logistically that come along with an away game. But I think there's also a lot of positives because you don't have the distractions of who's at the game, what do you have to do pregame? For coaches, you got, pregame, we got to go recruit. We got to do all those little things that you do at home games. And so now when you go on the road, it's just you guys focusing on the game and what it takes to win.
When you look back at the film, where do you feel like you guys executed strongest on Saturday? And if you had to put your finger on one thing, where would you like to see most improvement this week?
Well, I think we got to offensively start faster. and we just didn't execute really those routine plays early in the game, and a lot of the fault will fall on the shoulders of Drew, but it wasn't all Drew. We had some drops. We had a couple penalties. Drew had some uncharacteristic throws. We just could not get it going early in the game, and to really look in how it got flipped in the second half, and we were able to establish a run game. But what does that do is, as I said before, it opens up areas in the pass game, and that's what it did. You continue to run the ball with efficiency, and now the pass game opened up, and Drew, I think, finished, I wrote it down, 13 of 14, after starting 4 of 9. And so that's what you want to see, but I think it was just the ability to establish that run game, commit to it. Defensively, we started really well. It's just like it's that one drive a half, that ends up in points that we have to continue to find a way to eliminate. Our defense started in the first half, the one drive on a 33-yard line, and we got it to 3rd and 10. Well, at 3rd and 10, you got to get off the field. And, they end up converting 3rd and 10, and they tempoed because it was a close call. And, all of a sudden we didn't get lined up, and they got a touchdown. And so I look at myself more than anybody, maybe I should have called a timeout there, maybe to review it. But maybe even if we reviewed it and we didn't get it overturned, maybe it was a chance for us to calm down and regroup, because the very next play we don't get lined up and they score a touchdown. So there is teaching moments for all of us.
We'll go to Zoom for our next question. Chuck Freeby.
Marcus, Mac Brown started coaching in 1983. You were born in 1986. How do you make up for the experience factor?
I don't know if you can make up for that lack of experience, but again, Mac Brown, Coach Brown has been, I'm sure, through a lot of different scenarios and situations that haven't been through or just starting to go through. And so, I really just got to focus on our team and the preparation in terms of trying to give our team a chance to have success. But you're going to go against a well-coached team. And so I know that's not a great answer to your question, but there is nothing I can say that says, hey, this is going to help us in terms of the experience that Coach Brown has, But listen, we both have the same amount of experience with our current roster of this current year, and that's the reality of it.
We'll go 3rd row on your left, Tim Priester.
Coach, you've said numerous times your offensive line, defensive line program driven. But your offensive line really stepped forward this past week. I mean, how would you put your finger on that improvement besides execution? But I mean, that was a pretty good defensive front you faced, and the O-line played at a much higher level.
Tim, you're starting to see some consistency out of that group. J-Pat, obviously this is his 2nd game, but those guys being together for 3 games, they're getting better. They're improving. The fundamentals, the execution, the techniques they're playing with are improving. They have a long way to go. They do. And they're an extremely talented group, but they're still young. And I know it's week 3, but they're still young, but they're really starting to become cohesive and execute the way we want. But there's teaching. It's funny, you watch the film and there's teaching plays left and right of if he's got to do this for us to make this a 1-2 yard gain into a 5 or 6 yard gain, or the 6 yard gain into a 12-yard gain. And so that's the beauty of it, man. They play much better, and they have a lot of room to grow.
Your offensive game plan was a lot less vertical with Drew Pine as a quarterback. Coach Reese created some things with the downfield pass to the running backs. Mm-hmm. As you move forward, and wide receiver isn't necessarily a huge strength for you guys right now, what can you do to create more of a vertical offensive game?
Yeah, well, if you go back and really watch Cal's defense, they were primarily a one-high team. And, one-high teams a lot of time are built, 1, to stop the run, but 2, to stop the vertical passing game, to prevent you from making those big plays. And we had a game plan in of kind of being more lateral in our passing game. And listen, we missed a couple shots that we took a chance on, but we're going to have to throw some balls downfield. We're not going to get away with running 5-yard routes and RPOs and running the ball the entire game. We know that. And there's a belief from our coaching staff, from me on down, that we can and we will to be able to execute that. We haven't done it yet to the percentage that we want to, but to be able to win the upcoming games that we play, you're going to have to be able to complete some balls down the field.
Go John Bryce, front row, and you're right.
Hey, Marcus, you referenced earlier that the team executed when it absolutely needed to the most on Sunday. So what do you think enabled or empowered them to do that, to win a fourth quarter 10-0 and to get those 2 stops on downs and the punt?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what it was that made them do that, because if I did, we would do it at the start of the game. But it was good to see. I think it was just the confidence. It was the defense coming out of the locker room, going 3 and out. The offense driving the ball. I don't know, coming out offense. We got the personal foul. Okay, the roughing the passer on Drew as we were driving, and then we ran the same running play 4 plays in a row, and we got into 13 personnel. I think Audra got 8 yards on the first play. We said run it again. Bam, got a first down. Run it again, and we end up scoring. So 4 plays in a row we ran the same play, and it turned into points. And then the next series, we had an 8-play drive. It ended up in a field goal, 8-play drive, 6 runs and 2 RPOs. And so when you're able to run the ball with efficiency, I think it gains confidence and it opens up so many other options for you.
And then I guess, what did you see yesterday that maybe leaves you optimistic that they're going to harness that execution and spin it forward?
Well, I think it starts with the coaches. I know the coaches are going to, we're going to tell them where they do a good job, but we're going to continue to make sure we harp on the things we got to get better at. And, when you're able to run the ball efficiently like they were on Saturday, like we were on Saturday, there's a confidence, but then there's also the pressure from your coaches to your players to continue to improve and continue to be able to work on those areas that we weren't so proficient at. And I know we're going to be able to continue to improve, because there's not a satisfaction amongst anybody in our football program. And so if we continue to put in that effort and that mentality in practice, there's a strong belief that that's going to translate over to the game.
Go Levon Whitaker, back row on the camera deck.
Coach, what have you seen in North Carolina, this offense that's averaging about 50-plus points a game, that you want to key on in this upcoming matchup?
Yeah. After last year, we know we were going to face a really good offense last year, and they put up a lot of yards against us, a lot of points. Coach Longo's a guy I met even when I was at Cincinnati. I met him my first year when I was there, and a guy that I've had respect for and followed kind of just throughout his coaching career. Listen, they're a talented offense, and they have a veteran offensive line group, with a couple guys that transferred. This quarterback is playing really, really good football right now. And I know he's a young guy, but he is playing as good as any quarterback in the country. And, we expect Downs to be back from injury. And so, listen, we got our work cut out for us. They're going to try to take advantage of what you give them defensively. That's what they're able to do, and they're going to go at different tempos, and they're going to make you get lined up fast. And that was something last year we weren't able to do. And so we have to be prepared and have to make sure we have a good plan to try to limit what they do offensively.
And what are the adjustments that Coach Harry and Coach Washington made on the offensive and defensive lines to kind of help you guys improve in this game against Cal?
Well, I think a D-line, it was really that mentality of being relentless. We knew they were going to drop back and pass the ball more in the second half after we got them down a little bit, and our D-line did a good job of being relentless and getting after the quarterback. But also with that comes those couple plays where the quarterback scrambles, and that's the fine line, is we got to be relentless to get after the quarterback. But at the same time, we can't give up a fourth down conversion with the quarterback scrambling and a second and long conversion with a quarterback scrambles. Like, we have to understand the integrity of our rush lanes. And so it's a double-edged sword. We want to get pressure, and we want to be relentless after the quarterback, but we also don't want to see that quarterback scrambling for a first down. And so those are some things that we have to make sure we clean up defensively in a D-line. And offensively, it's just continuously improving. And that's what you love to see, is that group from Ohio State to Marshall to Cal has gotten better. And like I said, they have a lot of room to grow. You know why they have a lot of room to grow? Because they're extremely talented. It's a talented group that the ceiling is really high, but they're improving. And I'm really, really encouraged by the things I've seen from Coach Easton and Coach Wash and our O-line and D-line.
Tim O'Malley, third row on your right.
Coach, back to Estime and Tyree. You mentioned at some point finding hot hand or hot hands at this point would be kind of the way to go in the running game. Is Diggs available this week?
Yeah.
And I know you're going to need 3 for 10 games, but when you see something like that, when 2 guys are hitting it in different directions, is that just kind of the flow of the game thing too?
Yeah, I think, if Diggs was healthy, he would have been, in the game plan for Saturday. He was available if we needed him. We just, or if we didn't need him, we were going to try to hold him out a little bit. He'll be ready to go. He practiced yesterday, had a great practice, and again, I just believe it. I haven't studied every single offensive program in the country, but if you don't have 3 legit running backs, then to me, you're at a disadvantage. So we need 3 guys that can do different things. I think all 3 of those guys bring in a different element into our offense. And all 3 have done things that are done really well, and all 3 have areas of improvement. So I believe that we're going to have to utilize them all, find different ways to put them in different positions, and use Tyree in the slide, use him in the backfield, use him in the pass game, as you saw, for the 1 touchdown. And Aldrich, big man ran an angle route, caught the ball, and should have scored, and tripped over his own feet. And Diggs, I think, presents a little bit of a skill set that he can help you in the run game, pass game, and do some different things. And so we're going to need them all.
2 receivers got in. We saw Colsey on kickoff return blocking, I believe, and then Tobias Merriweather made his debut. Just need growth from them getting into the bye week, and then I'm sure Colsey's still kind of coming back from his knee injury.
Yeah, Colsey's still fighting his way back from the injury. I would foresee him getting more and more opportunities. Tobias was a guy that we wanted to play even more than we did. All of a sudden, when the game is close and the game's on the line, you're going to play the people right now you trust the most. And so what does that mean is that, guess what, our coaches have to earn more trust in Tobias, right? So we got to be better coaches so that we can have more trust in Tobias, and Tobias has to meet the coaches halfway and make sure he's doing the exact things he needs to do in practice and in those reps in the games, that there is a trust factor that we know if Tobias is in there, he's going to get the job done. He's going to do exactly what he's supposed to do. Listen, he's a freshman. It is tough for any true freshman, let alone he just gets here in June, to learn a system, and in the first 3 games be ready to go and play 100 plays. He's playing some plays, and I know he'll continue to play more and more. But I think both sets of coaches and players have to find a way to continue to gain trust in each other.
Tyler Horka, front row on your left.
Marcus, with Drew, how much was Saturday sort of a showcase of what you think the offense should be with him? Or have you seen some things in practice or talked with Tommy to say, hey, we need to open this up, and he can be the guy to open it up for us?
Yeah, I believe he can open the passing game is what I think you're talking about. I think he can open up the passing game. He's got a strong arm, but what we were trying to do Saturday is, again, what we needed to do to win, and that's what we ended up doing. But hopefully the second half is a better indication of who Drew Pine is. He's a passionate dude, and sometimes that can be your biggest challenge as you looked at the start of the game. I think maybe sometimes he's so excited, so anxious that he was, making throws a little bit lower than he usually does, or maybe a little bit higher than he usually does, just because of the game. And for him to calm down and really be like, Drew, go play, do the things that you've done to get you to this point, and go play. And to see him settle down and turn around and execute the one, I think about the 3rd and 3 catch on 3rd down to Lorenzo Styles, and to throw the ball away from the defender. And those little things, man, are, just take the layups that they give you, and there was a couple early in the game that we were missing. And so I have a lot of confidence in Drew running this offense and being able to throw the ball downfield if we need to, depending on what the defense is doing and making the right decisions.
Then you talked about how prolific North Carolina is offensively, and you just mentioned you did what you had to do against Cal game plan-wise to win. So considering those two things and considering how well you guys did to a degree against Ohio State with sort of a modified game plan, how much does this week kind of mirror that in that you're going up against a high-powered offense and you might need to do some things differently with your own offense to stay in a game or beat a team like that?
Yeah, I haven't studied them enough as a team yet to make those decisions, and those are things we'll discuss as a coaching staff as we continue to evaluate, continue to game plan. You know, the game plan versus Ohio State was specific to Ohio State. We'll look at where our team is now and who we're facing offensively and defensively, right? Some of those decisions are because of both sides of the ball. And so, you know, listen, we know they're explosive offense, and we obviously don't want to get into a shootout. And I don't think anybody in our program wants to do that, you know, especially not the defensive side of the ball. And so we have to find ways to stop them, you know, not just limit their opportunities, but we got to find ways to stop their offense and be creative in terms of our plan defensively. And offensively, we got to be able to control the ball. But we got to score some points. You know, I don't expect it to be a 7 to 10 game at the end of the third quarter like it was at Ohio State. You know, this is going to be a game that we're going to have to score some points, and we're truly going to have to limit them defensively.
Eric Hansen, front row, far right.
Hey, Coach, can you evaluate the linebacker play so far, and are any of the younger guys like Colley and Sneed, Ziegler, and Junior, are any of those guys close to knocking on the door?
Sneed is still a little bit – Sneed and Ziegler probably are still a little bit away. Right now they're on scout team. But, you know, Junior played a little bit on Saturday. I can see him getting more and more reps, you know, and Prince Colley is another guy that to me will continue to get more and more reps as we move forward. But those opportunities come from practice, you know, and that's been my challenge to those guys that aren't playing as much as they want. What are you doing in practice? You know, if you're making mistakes in practice, then coach is going to play guys when it matters the most in those close games, the guys they trust the most. And so those guys got to continue to gain that trust in practice. But they're extremely talented players that I know will help us. How soon, we'll see. You know, as far as the linebacker play, you know, to Maris still, he's coming back from an injury. You know, we're still trying to be smart in terms of how much we rep him. You know, and you look at Kaiser, who's moving from rover to at times we're a nickel team. He's playing inside linebacker, so he's still getting adjusted. J.D. Bertrand's been solid, but obviously he'll be out for the first half of this game. And so overall, again, I've been pleased overall. Is there a lot to improve at? Absolutely. And that goes for every level of defense from D-line to linebackers to the DBs. But, you know, overall I've been pleased with the group. I think we all have room to grow, though.
The 4 first half false starts, you got those cleaned up in the second half, but was there a common thread there? Was maybe Drew's cadence a little bit different, or was it something with the line communication?
You know, I think it's a little bit of everything. A new quarterback, you know, some of those third down plays, and you're getting some stems, and those guys are sitting in their stance for a while, and they're getting antsy, and you know, we just have to clean up those unforced errors. We have to clean up, you know, pre-snap penalties, and that's something that we made a big point of emphasis in halftime, and we'll make it during this week. We cannot continue to do that.
Patrick Engel, front row on your left.
Marcus, when you look at Josh Downs last year and when you game planned against him, I think the stat line was something like 10 catches and 130 yards, but no touchdowns and nothing that he caught like more than 20 yards downfield. How did you feel like you guys planned and defended, and I guess how would you look at that compared to knowing he might be a guy that kind of gets his and it's about mitigating versus are you thinking like got to try to completely shut him down?
I don't know if you can completely shut down Josh Downs. He's a really good football player. I don't love hearing a stat line of 10 plus catches and 100 and something yards. It's too much as a defensive as a former defensive coordinator, it's still a lot. I don't care how many touchdowns you have. You're putting your offense in position to score touchdowns if you're doing that. So we can't let Josh Downs get his. We got to find ways to try to, limit his catches and what he does after the catch. That's probably the most dangerous thing Josh Downs does. He gets the ball in his hands and he makes people miss, and he takes a 3-yard gain and makes it a 20-yard gain. And so that's going to be a huge challenge for us, and how we're going to defend that, who we're going to put over him, what coverages we'll play on him. But, he's a talented football player that we got to be aware of.
And then going off of that, how would you kind of evaluate the secondary through 3 weeks, and particularly Ben Morrison, who got the start there, and after that one catch down the sideline seemed to rebound pretty well?
Yeah. Man, to be a freshman, and, we had the same conversation about Tobias 5 minutes ago, right? And that he just got here in June. Ben Morrison just got here in June. But to gain the confidence of your coaches to go out there and be a starter in Game 3, it's kudos to him. He's done a great job in practice. He has to continue to get better. The other guy, though, in that same breath that I got to mention is C. Lou, a guy that has been a 2-year starter. But all of a sudden, you're not starting this game, and for him to step up and make some big plays. He missed the one sack that I was giving him a hard time about, and that's just been his nemesis, that corner fire, man. It's like the couple big play on him last year, and obviously missed a sack this year, but this past game. But for him to come and make some big plays and to step up, and like that's to me, if we can be a team made up of guys like that, we're all individual competitors. We're competitors. We want the most. But to be able to say, okay, coach has made a decision for what's best for the team, put the team first, but when I get my opportunity to go capitalize off of it, man, that's a great example for everybody in our program. That C. Lou, a guy that started for 2 years, did not start this past game for Ben Morrison, and when he got in there, he took advantage of his opportunities and played really high football. Like, that to me is the example I want everybody in our football program to understand. That it's not about if you're the starter, if you're not the starter, if you're getting the same amount of reps this week as you got last week. It's like, what do you do with those opportunities that you're presented with? And Ben Morrison's a great example of that, and Clarence Lewis.
Pete Sampson, front row on your right.
Marcus, obviously you have transfer at the back with Brandon Joseph. I was curious if over the summer or last winter you considered taking a transfer at quarterback, whether that be to challenge for the starting job or just enhance the competition in the room.
Yeah, that was something we'll talk about after the season, and see where Tyler Buckner is coming back from injury. See, we got a long season ahead of us. We still got 9 guaranteed games in front of us to evaluate Drew and Steve Angeli and Ronnie Prowlis. And if that's a position of need that we need to go and get a high school quarterback or get a transfer quarterback, we'll definitely evaluate that and make that decision.
I meant last winter.
Okay.
Yeah. If this was a conversation you guys had as a staff.
Yes.
Okay.
We discussed it right when I became the head coach. I had conversations with Coach Reese about it, and we felt like at that moment we did not need to get a college transfer.
And following up to that, the getting transfers here is obviously a little more complicated than basically everywhere else. Has you been able to have conversations with Jack Swarbrick about unwinding that a little bit so that process can be more streamlined, or it can be easier for you guys to get transfers in?
Yeah, it's a process that we're in constant communication with our admissions, with our faculty here at Notre Dame, and with multiple head coaches of athletic programs. It's not just football. That it's just right now a period in college sports where transfers and transfer portals are a big part of roster enhancements. And our people here at Notre Dame want us to be in a position to be successful. But at the same time, we want to make sure we protect the integrity of the education here at our university. So it's not nobody's gonna just win this. Hey, athletics wins, academics. No, it's we have to work together to do what's best for both parties. And it's a process that we continue to have discussions about and look to continue to enhance it.
Tyler James, second row, far left.
Marcus, you mentioned Clarence Lewis missing a sack earlier. There's been a number of missed sacks throughout the season so far. Is that an area of concern, and how do you sort of improve that?
No, I mean first you got to get there, right? I mean, and so to talk about missed sacks, you got to say, okay, well, we're getting good pressure, right? Now, how do we finish it, right? How do you finish the play? And that's something that it's a lot easier said than done. When you're going 1,000 miles an hour and the quarterback, you look at C. Lou's play, you see Scott Free. Yeah, there's a technique to it. Hey, you bend to make sure you cut back for a run. You bend to take away the cutback for the run. Then as the quarterback goes to pass, you got to go to his upfield shoulder. So all those different things that we can work technically to improve at. But at the same point, it's hard when you're running 20 miles an hour as fast as you can at somebody. He makes one move and you're expected to make the play. So we have to continue to work at it. It's not a huge area of concern of mine. I'm more concerned about the quarterback stepping up and scrambling than I am about us missing those opportunities. I mean, I don't know how many we had this week, 5 or 6 sacks this week. And so, listen, we got to continue to talk about ways to improve, but if we can average 6 sacks a week, we're gonna be okay.
Isaiah Foskey and Jason Adamola seem to be playing a little bit of getting banged up on Saturday. Is there any concern that what they were dealing with on Saturday will limit them moving forward?
No. It's a part of the season, and those guys are tough players. They were out there yesterday. Both of those guys, I have no concern with them being able to perform on Saturday. Yep.
Mike Berardino, second row on your right.
Marcus. The idea that a Hail Mary would ever work here seems sacrilegious, but what do you teach? What should have happened among your guys on that one? I just always thought you're supposed to bat it down.
Yeah.
How much of a talking point was that in the film study?
It was a major talking point, and I was ready at the end of the game to stop and say, okay, let's come here and regroup and let's talk about how we're supposed to play that, and that's just the coaching side of me. But, it was a situation where it was 2 things that could have happened, right? They could have thrown a Hail Mary and it was a jump ball, or they'd shown on film, because Coach Golden knew their offensive coordinator, to say, okay, hey, run everybody deep, take a guy underneath, probably 5 to 8 yards in front of the goal line, have him catch it and try to block and run in. And so as you see the Appalachian State play where it's a little bit in front of the end zone, it gets tipped and he scores. And so Coach Golden was kind of thinking, okay, we might get this play where they're not going to go all the way to the end zone. They might throw it in front of it. And so that's why we called what we called. But our players have to understand, let's start this. Coaches have to make sure we teach the players that we might call that defense for that situation, not thinking they're going to throw the Hail Mary. If it turns into a Hail Mary, we have to make sure that there's certain people responsible for certain offensive players. And your job is to box out the offensive player. And so there's really a couple guys that are there for the jump ball, and everybody else is boxing out offensive threats. But what happened is that isn't what happened. Everybody's looking for the ball. The ball's thrown, and you see probably 5 or 6 defensive guys looking for the ball. Everybody's trying to jump up and catch it and bat it, and it was close. And, it's, again, as I said to open, to teach from that moment after a victory is something that I would much rather do than if they would have caught that Hail Mary. And so we got to clean that up as coaches, which we addressed yesterday, and then our players then will have to go execute it.
So a week ago, you kind of spoke of Chris Tyree, lots of touch games into existence. How happy are you, or what's going on with Michael Mayer? Obviously getting a lot of attention game by game. Yeah. He went like 37 game minutes without even a target. Was that something Cal gave extra attention to? Is it something Drew just you can't lock in on? But what's the proper balance of getting him going?
I'm trying to look. There was 2. So in Series 3 of the game, right, we miss Mayer twice. We attempt to hit Mayer on the first down, right? We miss him, and then on the third down, we miss him. And that after that series, when we had that conversation to go, okay, no, actually the 4th series, we went 3 and out. The 5th series when we said, all right, man, we need to start running the ball. And so we kind of went away from kind of the passing mindset early in the game and said, okay, let's start establishing the run game. And that's probably why his targets went down. When it mattered the most, everybody knew who we were going to, and he was able to execute. But, listen, we got to find ways to get the ball in Michael Mayer's hand. We understand that. And we tried to earlier, didn't execute the way we wanted, so we had to kind of board a little bit and say, let's establish this run game and adjust our plan. But every week's our plan, one of the main plans will be get the ball to Michael Mayer.
Final questions this afternoon come from Sean Steyers, third row on your left.
Marcus, you were talking about your experience earlier, and when you come from, being a coordinator, all your preparation, game preparation is one side of the ball, obviously. How have you handled that during the week where now you're, back and forth with both sides of the ball? And has it evolved at all in this, short 4-game sample size?
Yeah. I mean, earlier, the first couple weeks, being able to, I was spent a lot of time coaching scout team and trying to make sure that the offense and defense were getting the looks they needed. I spend time with both staffs and really kind of, I'm a voice, hey, if there's a question or if I have a question to be able to answer questions. Last week, I kind of, in practice, spent a little bit more time with the defense, just not because I felt like they needed it, more so for me to be able to help the guys that were playing more, right? To be able to say, okay, hey, I know exactly what Johnny's supposed to be doing. Let me make sure that I'm watching him and we're fitting the ball perfectly or everybody's executing their assignment. But also my role off the practice field was to really ask questions for the coaches. And I want to know why, and that's what I spent a lot of time asking coaches, why is this happening? Why isn't this happening, to entice some discussion? And again, it wasn't comfortable for any of us, but it was what was needed and what will be continuously needed for our program to enhance. We have to have those conversations and really watch the practice together and say, okay, why isn't this person doing what he's supposed to do, or why is he, or those questions that need to be asked after practice.
And then what about game day? Like you were talking about, maybe, like a little back and forth with Tommy the other day during, what's that again, with both sides of the ball like?
Yeah, it's, depending on who's on the field, I'm obviously on that side of the ball. And then that's the difficult part, is that when the offense is on the field, I can't spend much time with the defense, but and the same thing when the defense is on the field, I don't spend much time with the offense. But the communication amongst coaches was really, really good. That's something that I was pleased with. I wrote down after the game to hear just the coaches communicating and talking about ways to fix some of the issues we were having defensively, offensively, and those guys being able to communicate, that's important. That cohesiveness, that understanding of there's a lot of intelligent people on each side of the ball, and to utilize those ideas and to implement them and make some adjustments. And it was really good to hear the coaches communicate.
That's all. Thank you, Coach.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Recording.